Um, what we've got is a whole lot of rhetoric and not a whole lot of substance. Question that came up about pledging to take the high road. Although McCain says that Obama has had the most negative ads, most of Obama's negative ads were negative toward policy, not person. Okay, and of course McCain's, most of it was negative toward person. Now, one question did get left unanswered on Acorn, and I hope he answers it soon. That when he was part of the Woods group with William Ayers, according to McCain, there was a donation of like $200 and some odd thousand to Acorn. And I kind of want to know a little more about that, and Obama didn't answer that question tonight, so that's something I definitely want to hear a little more about. Another thing that I'm curious about is why John McCain keeps insisting that the tenor of his campaign would be vastly different if Obama had sat down and done 10 town halls with him, or whatever the number is. The tenor of his campaign is what it is because he's losing. McCain talked about John Lewis's comments, and if you watched my previous video regarding stepping up to tell this woman that she he wasn't an Arab and therefore a decent person, one thing I would like to ask is, what's so bad about being an Arab? But that's another story for another day. The point is that the tenor that Mr. Lewis brought up reflects exactly how I felt, and then, like I said, about how Rachel Maddow brought it up. She brought up Harriet and Harry Moore. She brought up church bombings and all that kind of thing, because anybody who had any sense of their history saw the examples of these people who McCain called the fringe people at his rallies, saw what direction that was taking. I believe that the speeches that Sarah Palin has been giving have been inciting violence, and I was witness to that fact when I went to the Obama offices locally here on Tuesday, and stood there while a man in a pickup truck drove by and screamed out of his truck that if he was near him, he would shoot him right now. But you shouldn't threaten people, period. No matter how you feel personally about their thoughts and their deeds, you should never threaten physical violence against anybody. They discussed, how they felt about their picks for vice presidential candidate and whether they think that they could do the job as president in their absence. I think that Obama made a great point about Joe Biden, about how he's trustworthy, about how he's strong, and things like that. And then when it came to McCain explaining Sarah Palin, he didn't use any of those adjectives. All he said, really, for all intent and purposes, was that she cut budgets, she is a reformer, and she's a role model for women. I don't know which women. I got a little worked up when they started discussing Roe versus Wade. I was a little upset with McCain's gesture of quote-unquote health, the health of the mother, as far as mocking how Obama felt about the differences between any kind of legislation that would be pro Roe versus Wade versus negative, and that the health of the mother should be considered when making decisions, and it all comes down to choice. And when McCain said, basically, like I said, the health, in quotes, of the mother, almost as if it was a mythical thing, I got really upset. And we have to think about the health of the mother and what that can do to the pregnancy. That's not a mythical thing. It's real and true. And if a child is going to suck the life out of the mother, for whatever various reasons, then that mother should then have the choice to terminate that pregnancy. And I think that should be a choice for everybody, not just for the people you know, in certain states. It should be a rule across the board. You know, you can't have it state regulated. Continuing on women's reproductive rights and the choice of Supreme Court justices. And we really need to have people chosen who will take all things into consideration, not just their religious attitudes. Again, I'll restate my premise on it. My standing is I'm morally opposed to it, but I also agree that other people who have to make that choice should have the right to do so and get proper medical care in order to enact that choice that they've made. That's their right. And I think something got by a lot of people, and sitting and listening to the pundits, I think it got by them too, was the fact that when Senator McCain discussed who he would choose, you know, what the qualifications would be, he said flat out that if they didn't want to overturn Roe versus Wade, they would not be a qualified person in his mind. So he basically is absolutely looking for somebody who's going to overturn Roe versus Wade. And I think that Senator Obama said it best when he said that women should be able to make the choices, that government's not qualified to make those choices for women, and that constitutional privacy shouldn't be subject to state referendum. And I absolutely agree with that. I also was glad that Senator Obama brought up the fact that Senator McCain opposed the equal pay for equal work. And I think that's something that's very important for women out there who maybe haven't been paying attention up until now to hear. Just a note or two on the education discussions that they had. Number one, vouchers don't work. I don't care whether you're in D.C. or you're here in Florida. We found, I mean, they're still doing it. They're still doing vouchers because Jeb Bush wanted them. The only thing that's going to work with education is properly trained teachers who receive proper pay. If you don't pay somebody for the job that they're doing, they don't really care if they do the job or not. I mean, there are some people out there, Lauren, I love you, who do the job because they want to teach children. They want the kids to learn everything that they can learn. It's just like any other job. If you're not being properly compensated for the hard work that you put in, eventually you get burned out and you get frustrated and you don't really want to do the job anymore. And that's a shame because our kids are relying on that. So let's get some real good pay for these teachers. I was a little confused about Senator McCain's suggestion that when our troops come home, that they should be able to go out and teach in our schools without benefit of having to take their state exams in order to make sure that they're qualified to teach. He didn't get to explain that, or he just didn't bother to, and that kind of bothers me. Alright, my overall idea of who won, again, I think Obama went 3 for 3. I think McCain had a couple of good points, but then he started getting angry and cranky and telling the kids to get off his lawn again. I think why McCain started getting so irritated is that Obama wasn't falling for the bait. I got sick and tired of hearing about Joe the plumber, Joe the effing plumber. You bring up somebody who has a story to tell, and then you tell the story, and that's it. You don't keep going back and saying, you know, Joe says, you know, Joe is. In regard to just facial expressions and whatnot, a couple of times I thought that Obama's smile was, I don't want to say inappropriate, but probably not the best course of action. But the whole eye rolling and clucking and, you know, sighing loudly, which got Gore in trouble years ago, and it really was just too much of the anger and the just rudeness. McCain interrupted entirely too much. You know, Obama stayed cool as a cucumber. Imagine that. I think it wasn't Barack's best showing, but even on a bad day, he definitely was still better than McCain. But I'm hoping that the independent voters out there will take a look at everything that's gone on in the last, really over the last 2 years, and make an informed decision. Whatever we do, don't assume, on either side, don't assume that the fight is over. You get your butt out there and vote. Don't screw around. It's your right to vote. Use it, because if you don't use it, you'll lose it. And also, hey, say no to 2 in Florida. Say no to 2. If you don't know about it, look it up. That's what I have to say about that. Okay, I'm done. Later.